Okay. So today, let's get started on today's speakers. So we have Justice. She's currently a cloud engineer fellow at Google, and she will be moderating our session. Eunice, she is doing some data analytics work and also going to be a data engineer at Freewheel. Jamila is a data insights analyst at LinkedIn. Mary is an associate software consultant at Red Hat. And Viviana, are you here? Can you speak up if you're here? Okay, not sure, but we'll just get started. Feel free to get started, Justice. And if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. We will be asking them at the end.
All right, so my first question for everyone is tell us who you are and what you do currently and your role. And let's start with Mary.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Carocha. I'm an associate software consultant at Red Hat. I've been there for about 1.5 years, and my role as a consultant varies depending on the client, but primarily we go into other companies and help promote good open source practices. We have a technology stack of cloud and container technologies called OpenShift. That's one of our main products. So we just work with clients to promote those good practices. So definitely it's a cool role because I get to see a lot of different things frequently as I turn over new projects. So yeah, that's what I do now. I graduated from NYU with a bachelor's of science in computer science 2 years ago now, almost 2 years ago now. So still pretty fresh and just figuring out tech. So happy to share that with you all.
That's awesome. Thank you. And Jamila, you can go next.
Hi, I'm Jamila. Yeah, so I work as an insights analyst at LinkedIn. I'm based in New York, but fortunately LinkedIn has sort of the we trust you to work from wherever you want. So I'm hybrid, remote, depending on where I am in the country. So I'm currently not even in New York, which is nice, but to have that flexibility. But I guess my degree is actually in chemical engineering. So I recently pivoted and LinkedIn was my first tech job, data job. I was previously in the oil and gas industry, sort of using my chemical engineering degree until I got tired of it. And I was like, I want to do something else. And I took actually a sabbatical. I took 1.5 years off and traveled around the world from the end of 2019 to I guess June of 2021 was when I got back into the States. And what brought me back into the States was actually this job at LinkedIn. So accepting the offer was okay, I want to be in data, I want to be in tech. Is this worth it enough to stop traveling? And I actually did decide that it was a passion of mine. And so I got into LinkedIn. So I don't know if that answered hopefully the whole question, but I know we're going to get into more questions later. So
yeah, it's so awesome you were able to follow your passion there. Eunice, if you would go next, please.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Eunice Pereira. I am from Houston, currently based in New York. I moved about 2 months ago, and I'm currently a data analyst at Freewheel, which is an ad tech company under Comcast. And so for my daily role, I work with advertisers to help optimize their campaigns, whether they want to target mobile, web, any sort of campaigns that they want to run. We help optimize those when we use SQL and different technologies like Redash and create dashboards on Looker. I am new to this role too. This is actually my first tech role. So I've been here about 2 months, going on 3 months as well. So everything happened fast, moved and got a new role in tech. So I'm kind of figuring all of that out all at once. And we can definitely talk about roadblocks that I faced later. As far as my educational background, I do have an engineering degree. So I graduated from Texas A&M University with a degree in industrial engineering. And my career just sort of went different ways. I worked in sales. The last industry I worked in was insurance as a claims analyst. I also took kind of a sabbatical and I did a coding boot camp. I really wanted to pivot into tech. And so I did a software development boot camp and then kind of taught myself more data analytics through Google certifications and a lot of other courses online. And that's how I was able to land my current role. And so I'm still definitely growing in it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your answer. And now Viviana.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for sharing your stories with us. I'm really excited to hear the panelists' experiences as well and learn more about the people that are here. I started in tech, I think pretty early on after I had graduated from undergrad. I went to Michigan and I studied information and applied stats. It was I graduated in 2017. So it was kind of, data science was still being used as like a sexy term, I think. Like no one really knew what it was, but everyone wanted to do it. And I felt similar in the same sense that like I really wanted to get into data, but I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. So I basically did consulting because I think it's like a place where you can really like explore different projects, different roles. And that's kind of what I needed at that point. And after 2 years in consulting, I realized I really wanted to get more technical with the experience that I had. So a lot of like the work that I was doing in consulting was kind of more high level analytics. And I think that was great experience, but I wanted to do more machine learning and just a couple of more model building, which I didn't really experience a lot of in consulting or in my undergrad experience. So I decided I wanted to find a way to like break into that. And I kind of similar to everybody else, I decided to take a leave of absence from work. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna go figure this out. And I did a fellowship called like the Data Science for Social Good Fellowship, which kind of trains people who aren't formally data scientists. Some are, but into working on data science projects for social good. And it was there that I kind of confirmed that I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. Like when I come back from this leave of absence, I'm going to go to grad school and do more data science. And then after that, I kind of started to look for other opportunities, and I did an internship with like H2O AI, and then I did an internship with Lyft, and I realized I really enjoyed my time with Lyft as a data scientist, and I came back to them full time. And so now currently I'm a data scientist at Lyft. I'm working on the memberships team, which is Lyft Pink, if anyone's familiar with it. We're still growing, and that's kind of what my focus is as a data scientist, is working on like growth related projects. Yeah, it's been a great experience, and I'm really happy to share what it's been like, where the tears have came and where the smiles have came.
That's awesome. It's really cool to hear like everyone has these different backgrounds, but it all led them to pursue data science. So I'd also love to learn from, let's start with Viviana. Why did you choose to pursue a career in data science?
Yeah, mine kind of started in undergrad, where initially I was trying to do clinical psychology. And I realized while I was doing psych that I really enjoyed the more technical aspects of it. Like I really enjoyed experimentation and just like being able to like, I don't know, predict human behavior or like understand human behavior mathematically, which is something I never thought I would have enjoyed when I first got to undergrad. And I kind of listened to that itch when I took a coding class, and then I realized like, yeah, data science is definitely like that middle ground for me, where like I can use these advanced like technical methods, but also get like the psych aspect of like understanding human behavior, like manipulating human behavior, to be honest, to like get what it is that you're trying to solve or like make people do. So yeah, that's how I got into it. It's kind of like a very weird way, but definitely like I'm happy with it.
That's really awesome. Jamila, how did you decide to pursue data science?
Yeah, so I guess during the trip I realized that like around the time where the money was starting to run out, I was like, oh, I need a job. But I wanted to go into an area that still allowed me to have the freedom that I had been having for the time that I was traveling. I really enjoyed just like being able to live where I wanted, but also like really enjoyed like the creativity I was able to have just like through travel and through meeting people. And I really like art, which is kind of what you would think to be the opposite of data, but there is a lot of art in data and data analysis and in like data visualization. And I realized I hadn't really tapped that much into it when I was a chemical engineer. And so like just playing in Tableau, I'm like, oh, I can get paid to play in Tableau all day. Like that's awesome. So I think that was like one avenue that really got me into it. It was like, I also did a program called Data Science for All, which I met Emiko from, but realizing like, oh, okay, I really am actually pretty good at this. And there's a lot of strengths that I can pull from that also align with my interests even outside of work. So I don't feel like I'm working 100% of the day, but yeah, I guess another thing is I met a lot of people on the road that were in sort of software type computer science roles. And I was like, oh, what if I want to pick up and travel again? I kind of want to do that with the job. So I'm not like sort of bumming it like I was before. So it'd be nice to be in a digital job, and data has like so many different options with in terms of the roles that you can go into, that you can sort of live wherever in the world because everyone has data. So
I think it's really unique how being in a data science position, you're able to be a little bit more flexible with working either from home or other places in the world. Eunice, what brought you to data science?
So my journey to data science actually started in undergrad, although I didn't know that. Similar to Viviana. I graduated back in 2012. So data science, data analytics, it really wasn't a huge thing as it is right now, although people were already doing the work, obviously, but I think the names weren't maybe as like popular. But in industrial engineering, we were using a lot of just different engineering statistical methods, simulation software to work like with, I did like a consulting project with a Houston company and was able to provide recommendations on how they can better their processes for cleaning turbine engines. I thought that was the coolest thing, to take a bunch of data, ask a bunch of questions, and then use methods to give actual recommendations that will make a difference in their business. But I didn't know what to do after college. I was kind of like figuring it out. I ended up working in sales, like I said earlier, moved on over to insurance. What was missing though was similar to Jamila. It was sort of like that art aspect, to be creative, but to also use those technical abilities. And so what kind of led me was I knew I wanted to work in tech, and I was interested in coding. I had taken a coding class before, so I wanted to tap back into that. So I left my job, stable, benefits, salaried, and left because I was unhappy. And honestly, and I think that speaks to like how much more, it's not just like working in data or having a career change. It really is what you find to where your passion is. And I did a coding boot camp for software development. But immediately I knew, I was like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. I'm definitely more interested in data. I went ahead and finished it. And then just on my own, learned more Python, Tableau. I'm learned more SQL, things that just weren't covered in my boot camp. And just did that on my own. And I was very intentional about pursuing data analyst roles in New York because I knew I wanted to move, but also remote where I could move around, similar to Jamila, like meeting people that you can just travel, you can go anywhere. And now that's definitely a possibility. So that's how I ended up, in my current role, and that's what led me there.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting. Mary, what led you to your current position?
Yeah, so I'm not strictly working in a data science role, but that was also kind of an intentional choice I made. So I was actually introduced to coding pretty early on. I did a summer program with Girls Who Code, if you're familiar, when I was in high school. And it kind of just stuck with me. I had a really positive experience, especially being introduced to coding with a lot of like female role models. I think really did its job in convincing me that there was a place for me in tech. And it's something I just stuck with. I continued to explore in college, did a few internships. And yeah, I've just stuck with it since then. But what I realized was in all my different experiences, so in one of my first internships was in robotics. And at first I thought that was more what I was interested in doing. I originally started studying computer engineering in college because I was like, okay, like I want the coding aspect, but I also want to be familiar with like the electrical engineering and like the physical like circuitry that goes into robotics. And I just was so confident that, you know, that's what I was going to pursue. And then I took my first circuits class in college. It just wasn't for me. It was like the first time I'd ever failed an exam. I was like having this whole identity crisis. But then I just started realizing that, you know, like that decision I made as a senior in high school didn't have to be what I stuck with just for, you know, just for sticking it out. So I tried to give myself some grace, focus on just exploring the different fields that, you know, code can be applied to. And I did an internship for 2 summers with Boeing, which was awesome, working on like autonomous technologies, which is really cool to have exposure to that. And I really enjoyed it, but I kind of wanted to return to like more of a, I don't know actually, and it's still kind of what I'm exploring. I just wanted to keep exploring is what I decided. I didn't want to like pigeonhole myself into, you know, just engineering applications. I wanted to see what was out there, and I kind of found myself gravitating towards consulting, and I've been really enjoying it so far. And it's allowed me to explore other industries through my clients. So I've had clients in the finance industry and like telco. Right now I'm working with an extermination company, which like I didn't expect. So that's been interesting to see the applications there. And it's just been a lot of problem solving. Every client comes to you with, you know, a different mess. I don't know, polite way to say mess, that they need your help with. And I've enjoyed the people facing role as well, because I like, you know, having the chance to work with others, even like non-technical people. So that's kind of been my path. And I'm still, you know, pretty early on in my career, still deciding what I like. I actually also came to consulting because very into travel. I haven't taken that sabbatical yet though, so maybe that's maybe that's coming up. But now that we've been remote for so long, I feel like that's definitely an aspect I don't want to give up. Like I wouldn't want to move into a role where I couldn't do the job from anywhere. So maybe that'll change in consulting, where sometimes you have to go travel to clients, but we'll see. We're still exploring.
I think it's really cool to see that all of you guys, your paths weren't exactly linear. You guys all discovered data science in your own way. And it makes it seem more human and handling it with grace, like you said, Mary. Eunice, I want to ask you, what were the challenges that you faced in starting your career, especially starting in a time when data science was just so new? And how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges I faced, I think it would be similar to anyone switching industries into tech in general, and that would be not knowing what's going on, you know, like not having mentorship, not having someone to tell you this is what you need to do, and doing a lot of figuring it out. So what helped me the most was joining networking groups like the Guerrilla, Latinas in Tech, any sort of tech-based group, Women Who Code, and just connecting with people that were in positions that I wanted to be in. And so being a little bit more, less shy, a little bit more bold, and asking questions. Hey, could I schedule a Zoom chat with you? You know, and can I, you know, ask you a few questions about your career, and just using all of the resources and allowing people to support you and help you, to guide you for different resources. So I was exposed to a lot of different like certifications and courses and projects, and I got to pair program with a lot of people to build projects together through networking. So I would say I think it's probably highly underrated, because we quickly go to maybe, what do I need to do right now? Well, connecting with people, I would say that was the best thing that I could have done. And I think as far as being in a new data role, what I found is that there's a lot of talk, especially like social media, about, you know, pivoting a career into data or data science, and it's very much like glorified in a way. But I don't hear a lot of people talk about when you're already in your role, like you're back in the trenches for sure. Like it's learning all over again, learning their software and applying everything you already know, but always being able to ask for help, ask for support. Everyone is there to help you, and not feeling like, you know, you need to come in guns blazing and knowing everything. And that's not really the case. You know, there are people that are willing to help you, and allowing that to happen. So right now, that's what I'm experiencing now. You know, some days I feel great, some days I feel lost, and I just have to ping someone on Slack like, hey, can you help me with this? I have a few questions. And this whole process has taught me that, to like sort of let my guard down and allow people to help you, to support you. Everyone is there to help each other, and you don't have to do this alone. Yeah, I think that's been my experience in that case.
I really like that you pointed out that this isn't a journey that you have to do alone. There's so many people that are willing to answer your questions. Viviana, what are some of the challenges that you faced in starting your career, and how have you handled them?
Yeah, I don't know if I can give a better response than Eunice, because I feel like she basically covered all the bases of that. Like, I think the biggest thing was, for me at least, accepting that I'll never know everything. Like, but not letting that turn into like imposter syndrome. Like, I think it's really easy to tell yourself like, well, like I've only done this one thing. Like I only have this undergrad degree, or I only have this master's, or I only have this one thing. And like, it becomes like, I can't do that one thing because I don't have that experience. And I think Eunice said it really well, is that like, you don't always need to have that experience. There are plenty of other people that do have that experience and are willing to share that with you, and you can build that over time. And maybe the experience that you're longing for, like maybe that's not the experience you need in the role that you get. And like, you're going to have to pivot from that. And you don't want to like keep anticipating these worrying thoughts that are going to stop you from like doing the next thing that you're like truly passionate about, just because you feel like you don't have the right credentials for it. And I think I'm constantly learning that in this role, where there will be a new problem that you don't have the exact skills for, or someone's asking you a question and you think there's a different way of solving it. It's okay if you don't know how to. Like, you're going to figure it out. There are many ways to figure out any of these problems, and whatever way you approach it is the best way for what is needed. You will get feedback and you will grow when like you ask people for more direction. But the point is like, I think my biggest point of advice is, yeah, don't get in your head too much about this. Like, it really is, you really have to just put one foot forward in front of the other. And like Eunice said it best, like, I think the only reason I've gotten to where I am is because I like reached out to different networks and different communities to show me that that was the case, that like there was more that could be done because there were people who were willing to help me. Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is like you need to be able to rely on others. You need to be okay with pivoting, and you'll have that support there. Like someone is going to be there for you. Now you're going to be there for someone, hopefully. Like it definitely is centered around that community and pushing forward. Like data is no different than any other field in the sense that like the experience that you get will always be different at other places. And what really means is that you take away the foundational aspects and you keep trying. Obviously, it's really easy to say, and everyone here is clearly in the minority of data, but there are people who are willing to help you get there. And it's okay to not do well in the beginning or not feel like you're doing well in the beginning. Like, I think that's normal. And I think we need to normalize that a little, and that like you're not always going to be the best coming into it. That's okay. Like you'll get there.
I think a really good point from what you said too is you're not going to know everything, and that's totally okay. Jamila, if you want to let us know, like, what are the challenges that you faced in starting your career and how have you handled them?
Yeah, I really just want to like echo the sentiment that Eunice and Viviana both said. I think it was said like super well. Just to echo off of that, I think just realizing that like I'm in tech, I'm here now, I'm no longer pivoting, like I've pivoted. And also just realizing that like no one else knows what they're doing. And I think that's like a realization that like every day I like remind myself that every time I consider someone to be an expert, they have other experts that they're going to and vice versa. And always being just like nimble, like things change all the time, skills are changing all the time. That's something that like even data supports, like in my job that I'm looking at like skills data and stuff like that, realizing that like I need to constantly be learning. And I know that I can do that because I've pivoted. And we've all like been in a space before where we were the new ones, and now we're back in a space where we are new. And just being comfortable and like being uncomfortable, I think is like the new challenge of like, I was not necessarily an expert at my last company, but like I was not new and like just being comfortable in that space, but also just knowing that like there's a power in the fact that we have pivoted, because a lot of people haven't had to do this. Like if they, you know, from undergrad, they knew what they wanted to do and like started fresh in this industry, and like the industry's been around for decades and decades, then there's not really that power that they have in terms of having to constantly relearn skills that are constantly changing. And, you know, I think skills last about a year and a half on average. So even the skills that we have now, SQL, Python, Tableau, like there's probably going to be a new version of all of those a year and a half from now that we have to then relearn. And I think that's been like a challenge that I'm like still accepting, obviously, but like also embracing, because I do want to continue learning. I don't want to be bored. So
I think embracing the challenge is definitely part of the journey too. Mary, what are the challenges that you have faced in your current position and how have you worked through those?
Yeah, so I definitely have to echo what everyone else has said. It's just really resonated with me, especially in a role like consulting, where your job is to be an expert and like you're being sold to the client as the person that has all the answers and knows how to fix everything. And that's like the deal. But on like the back end, of course, like, you know, I just started, it might be a project with a brand new technology that I just like picked up the basics of like a week before when I like found out I was going to start the new project. So I had to get really comfortable really quickly with just like allowing myself to not know everything and seeking out help from other people. So the way it works in my company is for most projects, we'll have like a consultant and we'll also have an architect at the minimum. And the architect is just like our like actual technical expert that's just been, you know, working on a specific technology stack for years and years and years, maybe has like contributed to the code itself, just like more senior technologists, and they'll be on multiple projects. So the consultants will just be like, full time on one project. Architects will be kind of managing the technical side of multiple projects. And I would get on these internal calls with architects and just be like, so intimidated, like, oh, they're gonna see right away that like I don't know what I'm talking about, da 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 da. And then I started to realize that like the architects were always the first ones in calls to admit they didn't know something, especially with like our non-technical account managers or like the sales side, that'll be like, oh, like, you know how to do this, right? Like you're familiar with, I don't know, like AMQ streams, let's say. And the architect will be like, no, like super confidently, just like, nope, like never heard of it, but like, here's where we'll go from there. And the first time I saw that happen, I was like, I was shocked that, you could be so comfortable at work with not knowing everything. And I realized that that's, how the architects get to that point, is that they're transparent with themselves and their team with what they need to learn. And they're able to find someone who does know that technology. So we pulled in someone from a different team and we found like a course we could take, and, you start assembling the pieces from that foundation. So that's been something, I'm still working on, is just being upfront with like, haven't worked with that before, and that's okay. I don't need to be embarrassed about it. And, when you're client facing, that's extra important, but just like pinpointing to them, like, I have like this person and this person who know how to tackle that issue, and I'll reach out to them, and just, connecting the dots of my network in my head, and knowing that when I ask those people, they'll be there to help, which has been an awesome thing about Red Hat, because like open source is what we do. Like all of our products are open source, but the culture at the company is very much that way as well. Like we have all these big group chats that are global. So, anyone in the company can join them, and, you'll type a question in one of these chats, and like someone on the other side of the world will be like, yeah, I can hop on a 3-minute, like a quick call with you to discuss that. And it's just awesome. And it's like so normal, which is great. And one more thing I wanted to say, because it kind of came up earlier about, finding communities in tech and how important that is. I think the best thing I've done at work so far is find mentors at work. And my first mentor actually, I was onboarded in like a cohort of a couple of different consultants. And one of the other women on my team made a LinkedIn post. She was like, hey, like starting at Red Hat, so excited. And this other woman who's more senior in the company, but she has a tech background as well. She just reached out to her on LinkedIn and was like, hey, like, would you like some mentorship? Like, would be happy to work with you, since you're new to the company. And eventually that grew to all the women in our cohort. And she's been awesome. And I think she's been a great example of like giving back, and remembering, all the people that have helped us get to where we are. And she was like, yeah, like I'm going to turn that around and help, this new wave of people coming into the company. So she's been awesome. And she's pushed me to find other mentors. So I've like kept in touch with other engineers and architects I've worked with. And it's just made me feel more comfortable at work. And it's just nice to have someone to hear you out when you're working through problems. So that was, yeah, a bit long response, but
That's okay.
just being a little brave.
I think it goes to show that women empower women, and that's an awesome
sure.
example of that. Actually, staying with you, what does your career allow you to have in your life that friends in other fields don't have?
So I thought about this question a bit, and my first response was like the remote aspect, but I know that's changed for a lot of people in the past few years. But it's definitely something I value a lot, is being able to work from anywhere. But the big pull and, why I'm, staying where I am right now, is because I just love the culture at my company. Like I was saying before, I love that it's normal to just reach out to people you've never met before that aren't on your team, and they'll like help you. Or even if you're just curious about, like, say I was interested in pivoting into a data role, I could, talk to a data scientist in the company, just send them a message and be like, hey, like, do you have 30 minutes? Have a little like coffee chat. I'd love to learn more about your role. And like, they would be like so happy to do that. And I've definitely done that before with like software engineers in the company, just to, see what's out there. So that's something I definitely value a lot, is that culture of transparency and community. That's been really important to me. And even if I was to decide to, pivot or go to a different company, that's definitely high on the list of priorities for me, is the work culture and how the team treats each other.
I think a good culture and a good community enable you to be able to ask those questions when they come up. Jamila, what about you? Like, what is different in your life that your friends in other fields don't have?
Yeah, I guess speaking from my own experience, because I was that friend in the other field that I didn't have before I came to to tech and data. But I guess like one thing that I noticed right off the bat is like the ability to have a new idea and to be able to implement that new idea immediately, because the industry is changing so much, because the company is changing so much. There's always something to innovate at any moment in time. And that's not something that I had in my previous company. Like, we all know the oil and gas industry has been around since the beginning of time. Fossil fuels, it's given its name because it was the beginning of time when we found those. So I think just like being able to be in an industry that I can be creative and just like innovate every day, and always thinking about how we can make something better, but also not having to go through the whole like rigmarole of paperwork and things like that, because it's embraced. So I think that's something that I definitely, and also I guess like being in tech, there's like a lot of perks. So I guess another thing is like just having that value of both your mental and your physical health be valued by the company, and having the perks of like, like free therapy and free like this and that to make sure your physical health is good, and like all the tech perks that you just don't get in other companies, when it's still something that like everyone's going through on an every like regular day basis, that just isn't a priority for the actual company or the industry. That I'm just super grateful to have all the perks that like make my life easier inside and outside of work. So
Love to see that they care about the whole person, even when you go home and have to deal with all those thoughts, they're making sure you're okay. Eunice, what does a career in data allow you to have in your life that friends in other fields don't have?
Yeah, I think for me, it is the most important thing is that I can move into any other role quite easily. So starting off in data analytics, let's say, at least with my company, and I think pretty much in general, if you're more interested in you're working and you find more interest in data science, you can kind of sort of pivot your way into a role within your company or with another company. In my role in particular, I could pivot into maybe machine learning, like a machine learning engineering role later. And that's why I started off as a data analyst, but it's like a junior data engineer pipeline. So I could pivot into like data engineering, or if I find that being a programmatic trader is, I want to sort of work in a more client-facing role, then I can move into technical account management. And so I like the opportunity to just explore and to learn. As we mentioned earlier, I love that keeps coming up of like learning, figuring out, and kind of feeling your way out to see what you like, what you don't like, and what you really like, pursue that. And I think that's what I love about tech in general. Having a data role, starting data science, data analytics, you can sort of move anywhere you want to move. And also, from industry to industry, let's say if I'm working in ad tech, maybe I find something more interesting in fintech or ed tech. And it's just the skills are transferable across the board. And if you find something that you really, really like, you can hone in on that and become an expert in that, and that's my favorite part. And I'm so grateful that when I was pivoting into data analytics, and I was like, what did I do? I left my job. Oh my God, like, why did I put myself in this position? It was worth it. It was so worth it. And so for anyone that is currently either thinking about pivoting into data, don't give up, keep going. Everyone goes through the same thing of like, why did I do this? This is so hard. The uncertainty of it all, but it is worth it, because to Jamila's point too, you know, to be in a place where like you're cared for because you're needed and you're in high demand too. So being able to work remote, and of course there's like perks, and it's very flexible schedule wise, and there's just a lot of flexibility that I see that my friends in other careers just don't have. And I know that's like the big wave of everyone like, I want to get a job in tech, but obviously it's more than the perks and working remote and all of that. It is, you know, having a passion, you know, and enjoying what you do. But I like the flexibility of it all, you know, the encouragement to figure out what you like and pursue that. And you'd be surprised how much support your own company will give you, or, you know, through networking, through meeting other people, just how much support you'll have, that people that will encourage you to figure out what you really like and then pursue that. So I like the openness, the flexibility, and the career growth, all of those opportunities.
I think a really important message from what you said is to persevere and keep learning. Like, you're going to get there. You're going to be in demand. Just keep going and keep learning. Viviana, what about you? Like, what has a career in data science enabled you to have that your friends in other fields don't have?
Yeah, definitely echoing what everyone else has said about flexibility. Like, that is something I've truly noticed in being in tech and in data, is being able to be like remote, or still being able to work basically not in the office. So like the office not being a barrier, and being able to work at any time, like people having different schedules and still allowing that at different times of the day. So that also not being a barrier is a really nice, because I have noticed like other people who have, for whatever reason that may, like personal reasons that may be, different schedules, and they still get their work done on time, and like that's fully acceptable for like the company because their work is still being done. The other thing I would say is like, definitely what Eunice said is the biggest thing for me, is that knowing that I'm like, I don't know what the right word is, but like cross-functional maybe is the right word, is that data really applies to like any field in any industry, and your skills can really be leveraged in any of those. It's really just finding what area you want to like commit to. And that's not to say you even need to commit to like an area. I would say like you can continue to find different problems that excite you in different areas, and that is part of the reason, like I think why I still gravitate towards data and tech, is that similar to when I started off in consulting, like I really like that. I really like the opportunity to take on a new problem, but still have like that foundational skill set that can like help you solve that problem. And I think the other biggest thing is that maybe this is not solely to data, but like definitely like in data overall in tech, is that I've found that it's really easy to make an impact. Like when I was in that data science for social good fellowship, like what I worked on was a model for children in a foster care agency, and like being able to do that work with the skills that I had was not something I imagined for someone who really cares about ethics and like social good. One of my fears of being in data and tech was that I still wasn't going to be able to do those things. Like I thought maybe I would still have to be a psychologist. I don't know if that makes sense in everyone's head, but it made sense in mine, in that like I wasn't practicing the same way. And that fellowship kind of solidified to me that like there are still ways in which I can like contribute to social good problems with the skills that I have. Whether that be like a social good issue or like creating impact and showing people that they can also do this, like what Mary was mentioning with Girls Who Code. Like I was a mentor for Girls Who Code, and like just hearing Mary say that that was like a great experience for her like makes me really happy, because when I was exploring this field, I wish I would have seen that kind of representation So I think the other thing too, like that, just in that thought, is that like seeing how many people want you to succeed in data is not something I see in all the other fields. Like I think everyone who's in the field recognizes how hard it is to get there. And to get that like first job or like first opportunity, that like I genuinely feel that most people in data like want you to succeed and want to share their learnings with other people. Yeah.
That's awesome. I really agree with that, especially with all of you guys just being here to talk about this. You can see that we all want people to succeed in data science and we want them to try this. And now I think we're going to pivot to having the audience ask their questions, and Amiko's going to speak on those.
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions. I know Eunice already answered one in the chat, but this is specifically to Jamila. They're wanted to ask, how were you able to pivot from chemical engineering? What was the path you took and how long it took for you to get your current job?
Yeah, so I think, and I know a few of us have done like sabbaticals. I think that was a large part of my pivot of trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, because you do like really need to have that time of, if you're in your current job and you're also figuring it out, that you do need to have that time to figure out what you're passionate about and what you're gonna go into next. Because what you don't want to happen, and it could happen as well, but you don't want to like spend all the time pivoting and then realizing you don't want to go into that. So that's why things like boot camps are awesome. There are free boot camps like the one that I did with Data Science for All. You could also just watch videos online. That's how I started, actually, was watching some courses on Udemy and like Coursera. And I was like, okay, I'm doing this on my free time. I actually kind of enjoy this. Like I could be outside, like, you know, roaming the streets of Tokyo, which I end up doing in the evenings, but I was like, oh, I actually kind of like this. So I was like, okay, this should probably be where I go to get a paycheck in the future. So that was like part of the pivot process of figuring out what I wanted to do next. And as soon as I figured out what I wanted to do next, I did the Data Science for All program, but I also like just looked at jobs and like looked at companies. I knew I wanted to just do a specific job, but I didn't know necessarily what industry I would be qualified for or what company I would want to go and work at. But I think another big part of my pivot that helped me be successful was, as I was positioning my experience, I considered in my mind all of my experience to be relevant. And I think that helped in my interviews. So like in the oil and gas industry, I was working with data. You know, it wasn't efficient. I was working in Excel, and it was like quote unquote big data in my mind because it slowed down the Excel, but it wasn't really that big now that I work with big data. But I was using essentially the wrong tool to create to solve problems that I'm now solving with better tools like SQL and Python and things like that. But I was able to spin my experience of working in Excel, which essentially out of college, everyone has Excel experience for the most part. So everyone should have Excel experience at this point. But in interviews, I didn't necessarily say, oh, I only use Excel. I would say like, oh, I worked with big data, and kind of talked about how the tools that I use and tools that I created. But I think just like being confident in the skills that I use, not necessarily just the tools and the packages and things like that, helped me in interview settings. But I think there was a second part to that question. How long did it? Yeah, how long did it take me? So I think if you were to consider the part where I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do, that was maybe like 3 months. Because that was just me shopping around, networking with people on LinkedIn, and like just trying to figure out what they did in their everyday lives, trying to figure out if they were happy or not, like genuinely happy. And then started applying to jobs. And I guess the actual application process only took about a month, but I had time on my hands. Like I could take interviews in the middle of the day, like most people can't do that. So I could take back-to-back interviews with multiple companies, but I think I had that advantage of just having time. But I would say on average, my friends that I've seen pivot takes about a few months once they really know where they're targeting.
Thank you,
If
Jamila.
I could,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, if I could add some advice to what Jamila said, I would just say, like, if you're not able to take a leave of absence or like take time off of your role, I would still echo that, like, data may be present in your company and there may be an opportunity where you're currently at to do data. If you're, for whatever reason, you're not able to leave your role at the moment to take that time, like, shoot for that opportunity. Talk to those people, see if they're willing to give you a chance there and like be able to explore it there. That's just all.
Let's ask one more question before we start closing the floor. So they say, I'll be completing a data science analytics program this month. Any general tips for pursuing data consultant roles? So maybe between Viviana and Mary, you could tackle this.
I'll say at least for the consulting side, it varies a lot from firm to firm. My company is not just a consulting company, like we're a tech company. So my experience has been different from other friends I have, like in more formal, like consulting only roles. But I'll say a big part of it, and I've helped out with interviews for our like newest round of consultants now, and a part, it's not, at least from what I've seen and what we prioritize, like the technical skills, we want to see that like you can learn them, because in consulting, like your skill set has to change so frequently, and it's kind of the nature of tech in general. Jamila, I think you were the one who was saying that, like, you know, the things we're comfortable in now are probably going to be obsolete like in a year and a half. We're going to have to learn something new. So I think what I look for is you know, people who, you know, are confident in the things they've done before, who are comfortable learning new technologies, who, you know, understand the importance of asking questions and leveraging all your resources and, you know, all the people you have around you, all like the literal, like, you know, courses and like YouTube, and like, you know, how to find information. That's really important. And also the people skills are important in consulting, because it is a role where, you know, you have to please a client. And sometimes that means, you know, saying things they don't want to hear in a nice way, and just overall being comfortable talking about technical things and having, you know, being able to take more advanced topics and like summarizing them, simplifying them in a way that like an account manager or like a non-technical manager on the client side can understand. All those kind of things are important. So I think, you know, when people are hiring a consultant, they don't want you to like do an algorithm problem, or I don't know, like reverse a binary search tree or like anything like that. We just want to see that you can talk about technical things, you like working with people, and you like learning new things quickly and like pivoting frequently. It's not a position for someone who likes to get really proficient in one thing and like continue to build on that for a long period of time. So that's what I would say. Viviana, if you want to add.
Yeah, my experience was more on the like I guess like more traditional consulting firm. Like I worked at Accenture, but I think it's still all the things that you were saying, Mary, very much apply in the sense that like one of the biggest things with consulting is being comfortable with ambiguity, and being able to learn new things quickly. Like you're at the mercy of whatever the business needs, and you really have to be, as Jamila said, I think you said it perfectly, that no one really cares that you know Python, but everyone cares that you're confident in Python. Like it's not so much the packages, it's the confidence and being able to say like, yes, I don't know that, but I'm willing to learn it and I can deliver it. And that's really what consulting is that like, it's okay with being uncomfortable, but knowing that you're going to solve the problem and you'll deliver a solution. Another thing for consulting is, yeah, just knowing where you want to stand. Like, I know that like there are positions in consulting where you are client facing. There are also positions in consulting when you're not client facing. think it's worth your time to figure out which one of those you want to be, because like it will be different. And also like if you think you're comfortable in another one than the other, like your career will progress faster. Then the other thing I think with consulting is like one of the biggest pieces with consulting and data, or where I think they intersect heavily, is being able to tell a story. Everyone wants to understand what their problem is, or wants you to tell them what their problem is and tell them the solution. And you have to figure out how to translate that technically into like a narrative that is compelling. So I think one thing to do before you even get there is start working on your presentation skills and start like being able to deliver a story, like concretely, here's the problem, here's the solution, here's how I'm going to go about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Confidence is key in even not just consulting, in just the data science world in general. So each of you in 30 seconds, I'm going to give you, tell me any closing remarks, any things you'd like to say to our audience tonight, any words of encouragement. We'll start off with Jamila.
30 seconds. Okay, I would say relationships matter a lot in the field. Building relationships is not a waste of time. Have coffee chats on a regular basis with people that, and I forgot who said this today, but like people in roles that you want to go into, and it could go both ways. You might not necessarily just want something from them. They could eventually like leverage this relationship with you to actually get something or somewhere out of having this connection. But relationships matter. If there's just someone that you click with in your job that you just like venting and hanging out with, that's also a very crucial relationship to have, because you do need those outlets at work. So
definitely don't isolate yourself in this journey. Eunice, in 30 seconds or less, so it's something you would like to say tonight, your last words.
I would say to keep going. If you're pivoting, considering a role in data or in tech in general, but mainly data, it's not going to be easy, and it's not meant to be easy. Doing something new will always be hard. It'll be uncomfortable and you'll doubt yourself. That's all normal. Don't think you're the only one. You're not the only one. Everyone kind of goes through that. Anytime you're trying something new, something that's hard, it's uncomfortable and you feel dumb and it feels like, and that's all imposter syndrome, call it what you will, but just know that you're human. Show yourself grace and seek help, and I know we've said that a lot tonight because it's true. Your network really is golden, and, start building your network. Don't be shy about it. You'll be so surprised how many people are willing to say yes, that, yeah, I'll have a coffee chat with you and build a relationship from there. And if one relationship doesn't really click, go to the next and go to the next and go to the next. Take some time off. If you are doing some sort of coding boot camp or you're doing self-learning, take a day off. It's okay, or take 2 days off, because burnout is very real, and we want it fast and we want it now. I need to get this job. That's how I was. I need to land this role because just guns blazing, and it's like, relax, take a break, because you're going to burn yourself out. So finding balance, and I think keeping in mind the bigger picture, the big goal, whatever it is. What is your why of why you want this role, why this getting a role in data is important to you. We mentioned why it's important to us. Think about why it's important for you, and keep that at the forefront those days that you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting this, my code is all messed up or whatever. Keep that why in mind and keep going. Don't give up on yourself, because you owe that to yourself to put yourself in a position where you're happy with what you're doing, and you're opening up yourself to a lot of different opportunities for growth, career growth, financial growth, all of that. So my biggest thing is to keep going and take a bet on yourself.
Let yourself be human. You're going to make mistakes. Just keep going. And what about you, Mary?
Eunice, that was awesome. I'll say, I don't know, echoing what everyone has said, I think patience is really important. Being patient with yourself, especially you know, pivoting to something new is really, really hard, and it's a scary thing to do. So, you know, don't take on too much like all at once, I would say. Like, you know, reach out to your network, like interview some people, you know, make sure it's a move you want to do and you're like genuinely interested in. And based on those relationships you start making, you know, figure out what your next steps are, like what technologies you want to work on first, and how you're going to learn them. Like maybe you'll make, you know, a little project of your own. You know, I always find that so much more helpful than just being like, oh, like I have to complete this whole course, like, I don't know, in a week, you know, because that's all the time I have. And I don't know, I always get overwhelmed if I don't break things down into like small attainable tasks. So definitely something to keep in mind if you're, you know, considering a transition, is don't, you know, don't overwhelm yourself, because there's so much out there, and the more you learn, like the more you learn you don't know. So just be patient, and, you know, leverage your networks, like build mentorship relationships, just like seek out mentors. I think that's really important as well, that you can be like candid with, and you can open up about the things you're facing. And when you're connecting with people that are also in the industry, that like specific, just like having that background, I think can help give them much better advice. Like I used to only seek out mentorship from like non-technical people, and it wasn't like intentional, but I guess they just seem more friendly to me. And as I've, you know, been in this role longer, I'm like, okay, like I'll ask a man to be my mentor, like it'll be, and like, and it's been like great. So I don't know. I guess what I'm getting at is like, don't be afraid to make those connections, and don't let yourself be overwhelmed by like everything that's out there, because there is a lot, but you can get to where you want to go if you just take it a step at a time.
I think that's really important. Like, don't set impossible standards for yourself. Make sure you go a little bit at a time. And then finally, but not least, Viviana, what would you like to say to everyone?
Yeah, I think everyone has echoed it strongly, but definitely build your network. You don't know who's out there, who's ready to help you, who's like faced a similar, who literally probably faced something very similar to you and is like eager to put their hands like on you and just like send you off in the right way. And to finding that mentorship and community, like you guys all said, like don't isolate yourself, don't let yourself feel alone. Everyone has like been there. Really try to find that community and mentorship sooner, because how you feel very much impacts like how you go about your work, and you want to change that and put yourself in the right mindset so that you can like be the best that you can be. The third thing is like accept that you're a forever learner. Like the technology will change, the problems will change, the team will change. And at the end of the day, like you need to remind yourself that like you've done the work, you've built the skills, like the foundation to like go about a problem, even if you don't know exactly how to solve it. Like Mary said, like everyone on this call has said, like take it piece by piece. Like you will figure something out, and like yeah, just accept that maybe it's not the best solution, but it's the best solution for the moment, and you're going to learn from that. It's like you're consistently going to get feedback, you're going to pull from others, and I think that's the biggest thing for me is still like forever learner. Like it's okay to not always be right. But I think something I really do that I don't know if other people do this, but I have very much paralysis analysis. Like I'll get in my head about like, I don't know this one thing, or maybe this isn't the right direction. And sometimes like you just need to put that foot forward and be confident. And it's really easy to say, very hard to do. But like I promise you that it's worth it. It's worth feeling the pressure for a little bit, like for what like the end result will be or what you take away from it.
Thank you all for sharing all those very insightful comments and stories, and I love hearing all of your stories, really how you has navigated your early careers, really, like you're really starting your careers in whether it's a new position or just purely starting a new position. With that, I know we're out of time, but I also want to echo that community building is important, and women in big data can be a big portion of it. So I'm gonna share my screen again because we are doing this data science Olympian program where you could actually connect with other women in data and experience the technical skills as well as making connections. So I just want to share that. Feel free to and sign up for it. Let's see. I'm gonna share the link again on chat. So with that, and thank you everybody for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, night, whatever you are.